Ms. House, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Feinstein, Ranking Member Bennett, and the committee members. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you here today. I am the Director of Public Policy at People for the American Way and Director of Federal Legislation of our Democracy Campaign on Voting Rights and Election Reform. I would also like to thank my husband for being here with me today to support me, and I ask your indulgence to be kind with me today. Founded by Norman Lear, Barbara Jordan, and other civic-minded leaders, People For is a national nonprofit social justice organization with more than 1 million members and supporters, and more than a quarter century of commitment to nonpartisan civic participation efforts. Our efforts through the Democracy Campaign encompass advocacy on both the state and federal legislation, the protection of voting rights to the judicial system, and year-round work with election officials, including our leadership efforts in the Election Protection Coalition. I refer you to my written statement for more background about the Democracy Campaign. People For, the Democracy Campaign has enabled People For to more accurately assess and respond to the problems of the recent elections. Our work has been the impetus for the development and support of various pieces of legislation to address election problems, including such comprehensive reform measures such as Senator Clinton's The Count Every Vote Act. The Ballot Integrity Act is a well-intentioned bill, and People For supports the substantive goals of this bill because of what it would mean for so many voters, a removal of barriers to the ballot. While we always look forward to improvements in all bills as they move through the legislative process, we strongly support the need for voter verification and auditability, preferably by the 2008 presidential election, research on accessible voting technology, and all the provisions encompassed in Title III that serve to more comprehensively address disenfranchisement tactics. Although we have uncovered problems supporting the need for every section of this act at the committee's request, I will confine my remarks to Title III. While state laws protect the ability of partisan observers to monitor elections, currently there are no uniform provisions that allow nonpartisan organizations to monitor elections in the polling place. In 2006, through election protection, People For was witness to the insertion of large numbers of partisan challengers into an electoral mix that, among other things, already included new voter technology, voter identification, and provisional ballot problems. This created chaotic conditions that had the effect of disenfranchising a large number of eligible minority voters. Nonpartisan observers help create transparency, boost voter confidence, protect against any inconsistencies or potentially illegal activities, thus assisting in creating a fair and impartial polling place. In 2006, problems related to voter registration remained consistent and pervasive throughout the U.S. Next to voting system problems, voter registration issues were the most frequently reported problems reported to the Election Protection Coalition, accounting for 16.3% of our problems in 2006 and 25% in 2004. Hence, the urgency of the chairman's bill cannot be overstated. Regulatory interpretations that affected registration groups, such as People For's Victory Through Voting program, subjected volunteers to fifth-degree felony convictions for immaterial mistakes on the registration forms. Although some of these more egregious barriers were ultimately eliminated, the practical effects of these interpretations was to stifle voter registration drives. This is just one example of many that I've expanded upon in my written testimony. Perhaps more disturbing than the rejection of voter registration forms, however, were efforts made to block nonpartisan organizations like Mi Familia Vota from helping voters to register. Suffice it to say that we hope that provisions in the Ballot Integrity Act will limit such gross violations in the future. The voter list management provisions in the bill are extremely important. We gladly support their continued inclusion in the bill. Addressing concerns about conflict of interest is equally important. In recent years, the country has faced very public conflicts or the appearance of conflicts that jeopardize voters' faith in the fairness of our elections. In the 2000 and 2004 elections, there were examples of two secretaries of state that also served as the campaign co-chairs of a presidential elected. These dual roles severely color their actions to oversee their state elections. To encourage greater confidence in the management of our elections, we firmly believe that this should not be allowed to continue. Americans trust in the integrity of our elections and that it is the cornerstone of our democracy. Though some may argue that the chairman's bill is intended to overly intrude upon localities and politicize highly charged issues, People For firmly believes that it is the responsibility of our federal public officials to protect that right to vote. And we salute the chairman and your staff for introducing this bold and critically needed legislation. Thank you.